Greetings and welcome to some more fashionably late impressions here at Words About Games. Amy here, and today I want to talk to you all about Lost Ark. First of all, I want to give out some general information about the game. Lost Ark is an action RPG MMO developed by Smilegate RPG and published by Amazon Games and was released on February 11th, 2022 on PC via Steam. According to the game's store description, embark on an odyssey for the Lost Ark in a vast, vibrant world. Explore new lands, seek out lost treasures, and test yourself in thrilling action combat. Define your fighting style with your class and advanced class, and customize your skills, weapons, and gear to bring your might to bear as you fight against hordes of enemies, colossal bosses, and dark forces seeking the power of the Ark in this action-packed, free-to-play RPG. So I'm going to start with my general thoughts on the game before I dive into a few of my more in-depth impressions. And to start, my general thoughts on the game is that it's fine. It's a game that brought a huge wave of hype and anticipation going into its release, and it became the second most played game in Steam's history, at least according to its peak concurrent player numbers. And there was such a power of hype behind this game, as before it came out. Even I got swept up in the excitement as the release day approached. And I pretty much got exactly what I was expecting out of the game. It's more or less what I thought it was going to be. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It does a few things better than I was expecting, and it does a few things that don't quite work as well as I would have hoped. But on the whole, Lost Ark is a pretty good game if you're looking for an action-oriented MMO to really sink your teeth into. And I can definitely attest to that because I've seen my friend Ryan sink more than 150 hours into it since it launched for founders earlier in February. For me personally, I always knew that whatever time I put into it in sort of the week or two after it came out, it'd get put on hold because, games like Elden Ring and Triangle Strategy started to come out. That's how I basically approach most ongoing games that I've ever played throughout my life. I put the time in when I can, and then if a chunky new game comes out, I'll drop it temporarily and then come back to it once I've finished with whatever chunky new game I've just been playing. But with Lost Ark, I've played about 10 hours, and honestly, personally, I don't think I'll be picking it back up once this wave of giant games that's coming out that I've been excited for has subsided. And I've decided it's time to call time on making this video and just do the impressions and explain a few of the reasons why Lost Ark has lost me. Pun not intended or even written in my notes. Happy accident. I want to start this video with a few of the things that Lost Ark does actually really well that kept me on the treadmill for the several hours that I played it for. And I want to start out with the combat because the combat in Lost Ark feels fantastic. It feels really good to play. Lost Ark features a wide variety of different classes, and they each have their own unique play styles. And the game does a really good job of getting you comfortable with how your chosen class plays and how to get the most out of their abilities and what makes them different from each other class. The different play styles on offer in Lost Ark are actually really significant. We tested this out, myself and Ryan, looking at different classes and playing as different classes and comparing them together. And that's one of its biggest strengths is whatever your play style is, when you play an action RPG, there's probably a class here for you in Lost Ark that you're going to really enjoy playing. I was also really impressed by how powerful the game makes you feel right from the start. There's so many RPGs that I've played and you've probably played that start with you feeling like you could barely manage the lowest level creatures that you can possibly fight in the game, like the cellar full of rats, to use a metaphor. And Lost Ark puts you against small armies of bandits and demons pretty much right from the outset, and you can just destroy them with whichever class's abilities that you've picked. For me, I picked a sorceress, and I had a great time just exploding demons left, right, and center with all of my ridiculously over the top and flashy destruction spells. But you start off by feeling powerful, and then the game doesn't take that away from you and start you back at level 1. That is level 1. And then you become even more powerful as the game goes on. And I really dig that approach to player empowerment. It's something that I think puts Lost Ark in a good stead going forward. It makes players feel like they're having a great time straight away, instead of working towards having a great time at some nebulous point in the future when they've gotten enough XP or unlocked enough of abilities. Like you can instantly waltz into this game, create a character using whatever playstyle that you want, and then just start slaughtering waves upon waves of enemies. And I think more games should do this, honestly. So feeding into this are the dungeons and the boss fights. Like every now and again, you'll be thrown into a dungeon or an instance event, and honestly, this is where Lost Ark really shines. The game doesn't hold back at all in these moments, like whatsoever, and you really cut loose with your character, like fighting huge groups of enemies and powerful bosses, and it's like a perfect blend of level design, encounter design, and the power of the player character. Like it's in these dungeons where you'll be using like the full array of the spells that you've got equipped to your quick slots on your keyboard, and actually going through and thinking about what you're doing as you're doing it. Like, oh, like which of your spells do AoEs, which of your spells do like directional attacks, how to use them, when to use them, when's the best time to use them, which one's the best one to use. Like it's in these moments in these dungeons where you're doing that, and that's your thought process, that like this feels like what Lost Ark was designed for. Like I haven't made it to the end game, so I can't really comment on what that part of the game is like, but like as far as the leveling process goes, the dungeons and instance events feel like the best version of Lost Ark, and like what all the game's core mechanics have been designed around. And just briefly, I also want to shout out the character creator. It's pretty great. There's a lot to mess around with to design some pretty creative characters. Like, I had fun with it. Can't do proper black lipstick, though, which is a shame, because I was trying to make a specific goth sorceress aesthetic. It's fine, but it would have been nice if I could have done the proper black lipstick, but it's fine. It's fine. So the main thing that's keeping me from enthusiastically destroying the game like I am currently with Elden Ring, and the thing that will probably mean that I might not even go back to it, is the pacing and the questing between the dungeons, those fantastic dungeons I just mentioned. So the game's first few hours, like they teach you how your class works and the basic structures of the experience you're going to have, leading towards Lost Ark's endgame, like I've already mentioned. And it's a really good piece of onboarding, like those first few hours. And they lead to a huge and epic feeling climax of fending off a demonic invasion in the starter town where you kind of start the game in. It's tremendous, it's fantastic, it's awesome. But then after a few cutscenes, you're dropped right back into the world and the town that was recently like devastated by demonic assault. Like everything was on fire, people were dying. It doesn't have a scratch on it because it got repaired in like 2 days apparently. And then you're told, hey, go and look for the Lost Arks, which I guess is where the game's name comes from. It was as I was grinding through the next like several hours of the game that I started to realize that Lost Ark is a fine enough game, like with some really standout high points. But I also don't really think this is for me. Like, I love fighting my way through waves of enemies in the game's fantastically designed dungeons and instances. But the vast majority of the game is basically you wandering through maps between points of interest, picking up a couple of quests at a time, and then you'll go and you'll kill a few enemies, or you'll fetch a few items, or you'll just like interact with a few objects in the environment before you run back and then get another quest and then run back and then get another quest, and each quest only takes a couple of minutes, and then eventually you've done enough quests in one map and then you move on to the next map, and so on and so on and so on. And basically what I'm saying is there's a lot of padding between one awesome set piece or encounter and the next, and while I was never having a bad time per se, I did start feeling like I was having a fairly monotonous time, and eventually, like, it started to wear down my patience with the game. Like, putting my sorceress and her explosive abilities through the paces in these huge action set pieces and dungeons was fantastic, but they're pretty few and far between, and there's a lot of busy work involved in getting to them, and it really didn't help that each new location, like, rather than feel like this cool new place that you get to explore, it just felt like a series of well-decorated corridors that I was being funneled down as I searched desperately for the next big dungeon or big instance event to really sink my teeth into. And that's really preventing me from wanting to keep pushing through to see the end game, or even just to see the next dungeon. And like, I really want to see it. I do want to see how all the game's systems and mechanics come together once you reach the conclusions of the game's storyline and get into that end game. But like, each cool moment, each cool dungeon or instance event, like, there's hours of padding between it, or what feels like padding. Like some of it just feels like the worst, most unnecessary fetch quests of like MMOs that I've played in the past. And like eventually it's just like you start doing this cost benefit analysis in your head, or I do, where I'm sitting there thinking, okay, so there's these really awesome things that I do get to do from time to time, but everything in between is like, is it worth going through that in between stuff to get to the really awesome moments? And honestly, after like 10 plus hours of the game, like for me personally, I don't know that it is. So for my final thoughts of the game, I do want to stress that I'm not someone who typically plays a lot of MMOs. I was really only drawn to Lost Ark by its gameplay style, as opposed to the fact that it's an MMO. Like if you heard me talking about the game pre-release, you'll have heard me compare it to like how it looked, sort of like a Torchlight, which is what I was hoping to get out of the game. So I just wanted to sort of bear that in mind as I do my final thoughts, because there is a lot that I found to really love in the game. You know, it's got great combat, a satisfying approach to player empowerment, and friggin' great dungeons that bring the whole thing, the whole experience together in a really good way. But when I balance that against the monotony of getting to those dungeons and how much time is spent between them, it's a game that really only feels great in short bursts, and it's punctuated by hours of not great stuff. What a fantastic sentence. So that's it for this impressions video. Let me know what you think of the game. Did you like it? Are you in the middle? Or was it something that just wasn't for you? Leave me a comment down below. You know where the comments are on YouTube. Or hit me up on Twitter. All the info's in the description. And I'm going to get out of here because I have tons more games to play. Mostly Elden Ring. And there's not enough time in the day. So have a great day, and I will see you next time.